Garrison's cooked, bro. Cool. Nope.
My parents wanted to give my share of inheritance to their favored daughter, but little did they know that my grandparents had other plans. I, 28M, come from a family with a long and complicated history of favoritism. My parents, especially my dad, have always favored my younger sister Amy, 25F, over me. This favoritism started when we were kids and only got worse as we grew up. From my earliest memories, Amy was always the golden child. When I was 5 and she was 2, our parents threw her an extravagant birthday party with a bouncy castle, petting zoo, and professional face painters. For my birthday that same year, I got a small family dinner and a store-bought cake. This set the tone for years to come. As we grew older, the disparities became more apparent. Amy always got the newest toys, the best clothes, and the most attention. I remember when I was 10, I saved up my allowance for months to buy a new bike. When Amy saw it, she threw a tantrum because she wanted one too. Instead of teaching her about saving or waiting, my parents immediately went out and bought her an even better bike than mine. School was another arena where the favoritism shone through. My parents went to all of Amy's school events, but often skipped mine. In fourth grade, I had the lead role in the school play. I was so excited and practiced for weeks. On the night of the performance, my parents showed up an hour late, missing my big scene. They said Amy had a tummy ache, and they were comforting her. I later found out she was fine. They had just lost track of time while playing. When it came to academics, nothing I did ever seemed good enough. In middle school, I consistently got straight A's, joined the math club, and even won a regional science fair. My parents barely acknowledged these achievements, but when Amy got a B plus on a single test in her weakest subject, they threw her a celebratory dinner and bought her a new phone as motivation to keep improving. High school was particularly tough. I threw myself into every activity I could, hoping to win their approval. I was captain of the debate team, editor of the school newspaper, and maintained a 4.0 GPA. Meanwhile, Amy coasted through school, barely maintaining a C average and spending most of her time partying with friends. During my junior year, I was selected as one of 2 students from our school to attend a prestigious summer program at Harvard. It was a huge honor, and I was thrilled. When I shared the news at dinner, my dad grunted and changed the subject to Amy's upcoming dance recital. My mom at least said, "That's nice," but quickly moved on. The night of Amy's recital, which fell on the same day I was leaving for Harvard, my parents couldn't drive me to the airport because they didn't want to miss Amy's performance. I had to ask a friend's parents for a ride. The college application process was another painful experience. I spent months perfecting my essays, participating in extracurriculars, and studying for the SATs. I was accepted into several top-tier universities and received a substantial scholarship to my dream school. When I announced this at dinner, my parents' response was lukewarm at best. My dad said, "That's good, but don't let it go to your head. College isn't everything." My mom added, "Just don't forget about us when you're off becoming a big shot." In contrast, when Amy barely graduated high school and decided not to go to college, my parents were completely supportive. They praised her for knowing herself and not conforming to societal pressures. They even bought her a car as a graduation present, something they never did for me. This constant favoritism took a heavy toll on me emotionally. I struggled with depression and anxiety throughout my teens and early 20s. I started seeing a therapist in college, which helped me understand that my parents' behavior wasn't my fault. It took years of work to build my self-esteem and learn to validate myself instead of seeking approval from my parents. Despite the lack of support from my immediate family, I managed to build a good life for myself. I graduated college with honors, secured a good job in finance, and even bought my own house by 27. I'm proud of what I've achieved, even if my parents aren't. Now, here's where the current drama starts. My grandfather on my dad's side passed away recently. He was a successful businessman who built a fortune from scratch. He left behind a significant estate. In his will, he divided his assets equally among his children, my dad and his siblings, and grandchildren, me, Amy, and our cousins. My share of the inheritance was substantial, about $500,000. It would have allowed me to pay off my student loans, invest in my future, and maybe even start my own business someday. I was grateful for this unexpected windfall and the opportunities it provided. However, when the will was read, my parents were visibly upset. They pulled me aside afterward and told me they thought it was unfair that I got an equal share. They said Amy needed the money more because she was struggling. She works part-time at a coffee shop and lives in our parents' basement. I was shocked, but tried to stay calm. I explained that this was Grandpa's decision, and it wasn't up to them to change it. They insisted that I should do the right thing and give my share to Amy. When I refused, they got angry and started guilt-tripping me, saying I was selfish and ungrateful. My dad brought up every instance he could think of where they had supported me. He mentioned paying for my braces, which were medically necessary, buying me school supplies, the bare minimum, and letting me live at home during college, even though I worked part-time to contribute to expenses. He conveniently forgot about the car they bought Amy, the countless shopping sprees, and the fact that they're still supporting her at 25. The situation escalated quickly. My dad, as the executor of the will, decided to take matters into his own hands. He announced that he was going to reinterpret Grandpa's wishes and give my entire share to Amy on top of her own inheritance. He claimed this is what Grandpa would have wanted if he had known our individual circumstances. I was devastated. Not only was this clearly illegal, but it was also a painful reminder of how little my parents valued me. I tried to reason with them, pointing out that Grandpa had always treated all his grandchildren equally, and that he was well aware of our situations. My mom then accused me of speaking ill of the dead by suggesting Grandpa would have wanted anything different from what my dad was proposing. I brought up specific memories of Grandpa encouraging my academic and career pursuits, but my parents dismissed these as misunderstandings. They claimed Grandpa had privately expressed concern about Amy's future and had wanted to ensure she was taken care of. When I asked why he hadn't just written the will that way then, they didn't have an answer. Amy, for her part, seemed uncomfortable with the situation, but didn't speak up against our parents. When I tried to talk to her privately, she just shrugged and said, "Mom and Dad know best." It was clear she wasn't going to be any help. Feeling hurt and betrayed, I reached out to my maternal grandma, Grandpa's widow, for advice. She was furious when she heard what was happening. She told me that this was absolutely not what Grandpa had intended, and that my parents had no right to change the will. Grandma shared some information that shed new light on the situation. Apparently, my parents had approached Grandpa a few years ago, asking him to leave everything to Amy in his will. Grandpa had firmly refused, stating that he believed in treating all his grandchildren equally. He had even added a clause to his will, stating that anyone who contested the equal distribution would forfeit their share. Armed with this information, I confronted my parents. They were shocked that Grandma had told me about their previous attempt to influence the will. My dad tried to justify it by saying they were just looking out for Amy's future, but I could see the guilt on their faces. Grandma took action. She contacted her lawyer and the other executors of the will. She also reached out to my dad's siblings, who were equally outraged by what my dad was trying to do. Together, they put a stop to my dad's plan and ensured that the will would be executed as written. My parents were forced to back down, but they're furious with me. They accused me of turning the family against them and said I should have handled this in-house instead of involving others. My mom cried about how I had betrayed them, broken the family apart. My dad threatened to cut me out of their will entirely, to which I responded that I had never expected anything from them anyway. They're now threatening to cut me off completely if I accept their money, as they see it. My dad even went so far as to say that if I take the inheritance, I'm no longer welcome in their home. My mom, in a particularly low blow, said that my acceptance of the money shows that I never really loved them and was just waiting to cash in on their debts. The extended family is divided on the issue. Some of my cousins are supportive, recognizing the long-standing favoritism and praising me for standing up for myself. Others think I should have just given in to keep the peace, saying that family harmony is more important than money. My dad's siblings are firmly on my side, but this has caused tension between them and my parents. Amy is caught in the middle of all this. She told me privately that she didn't ask for this and feels guilty, but she's not willing to stand up to our parents. I don't blame her entirely. She's been conditioned her whole life to rely on them and seek their approval. Still, a part of me wishes she would support me just this once. This situation has brought up a lot of old pain and resentment. I find myself thinking back to all the times I was overlooked or dismissed in favor of Amy. The birthday parties I didn't have, the school events my parents missed, the achievements that went unrecognized. It's like a lifetime of unfairness is coming to a head in this one event. I'm standing my ground and plan to accept my inheritance as Grandpa intended, but the whole situation has created a huge rift in the family. My parents are barely speaking. Family gatherings have become tense and uncomfortable. Last week, I skipped our monthly family dinner for the first time ever because I couldn't face the cold shoulders and accusatory glare. Despite the drama, a small part of me feels empowered. For the first time in my life, I'm standing up to my parents' unfair treatment. I'm asserting my worth and refusing to be sidelined. It's terrifying and liberating at the same time. I believe I'm in the right here, but the family drama is taking a toll on me. I've started having anxiety.
Knowing the intruder is Mr. Fox, looking for last night's lasagna. Interviews brought to you by Rick. At Cambridge Associates, we are guided by our commitment to delivering investment outperformance and an exceptional client experience. Contact us to learn how we can build the right investment portfolio for you.
The attacks again, something I haven't experienced since college. I'm considering going back to therapy to help deal with all this stress. Am I the asshole for accepting my inheritance and not giving in to my parents' demands? Should I have just given Amy the money to keep the peace? I'm tired of being the family scapegoat, but I'm also scared of losing my family entirely. Any advice or perspective would be appreciated. Update. It's been about 6 months since my original post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. It really helped me stay strong during difficult times. First, let me address the legal side of things. As many of you suggested, I did consult with a lawyer of my own. He confirmed that what my dad tried to do was that I had every right to my inheritance. He helped me document everything and said his legal action if necessary. Thankfully, he didn't come to that. My grandma and her lawyer, along with my dad's sister, managed to sort things out without going to court. The will was executed as written, and I received my full inheritance. My dad was removed as an executive and possibly several weeks instead of expecting stability. Phone calls, threats of lawsuits from my parents, but in the end, the law was changed, and they had to back down. Family fallout, however, is still ongoing. My parents usually double down on their unfair reporting. Try to rally other families. Spread it that I had somehow traded grandpa money. Fortunately, most of the family thought the same. One particularly ugly and family gathered about a month after the will was settled. My parents showed up to fight. My dad started yelling about how I had stolen from Amy, corrupted grandma against them. My mom dramatically threw an old photo album at me, saying I had destroyed all the tax records. Several relatives calmed the situation and asked my parents. My grandma slept at home, became my strongest advocate through all of this. She shared stories about how my grandfather always been proud of my company, how he wanted to ensure all grandpa had kept track of back against the war, copies of my college acceptance letter, and even a program from that school play my parents made. Revelation both heartwarming and heartbreaking. Grandma also took it upon herself to set the record straight against the family. All the family laid out the whole history of my parents' favoritism. Incidents I had long forgotten or never even seen. Vindication to have someone finally acknowledge the unfairness I had experienced. But it also opened old wounds. As for my sister, she finally found the voice in all this. After soul searching, several long conversations about grandma, she approached the time and apologized for not standing up to her. Vindication to our parents' favoritism was wrong,